Last week at TRE, I got the full scope of updates from all the running shoe brands, and Saucony is one of the brands that had the biggest change to their lineup. So on the road running side, over the past few years, Saucony has been one of the most loved running shoe brands in the recreational runner community, and a lot of what drove that growth was the Endorphin line with the Endorphin Speed 3 and Pro 3. Now, both of those shoes saw minor updates, mostly to styling, but there are huge changes around the rest of their lineup with new foams, with models entering and dropping. So in this video, I'm gonna highlight all of those changes across the lineup, what models are entering, what models are going, and all of the changes to the existing models. Alright guys, before we get into it today, a lot of you have been asking, I did want to let you know, the Hobby Jogger hats are now for sale. I'll put a link in the description below. I also want to let you know to go follow the new Instagram. So I was doing a giveaway. Thank you to everyone who sent me in your training plans. Super inspiring to hear some of your stories. And congrats to Brandon, Danny, Daniel, Zach, and Abel. You guys are the giveaway winners. I've already DM'd you, so I'm gonna be sending out those fuel boxes this week. I'm also gonna do my best to get some more fuel here that I can give away to you all because there were so many great stories, and I want to make this an ongoing thing where I can be sending out some of these products that I get. So go ahead and follow that Supwell Running Instagram account. That's where I'm going to be putting all of my new shoe pictures from TRE, and also go ahead and pick up one of these hats while they last. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so first up here we have the Saucony Kinvara. Now the Saucony Kinvara has long been Saucony's lightweight, flexible, snappy daily trainer / workout shoe. At TRE we saw the 15, so the 14 has been on the market for a little bit now. 15 looks like it's continuing on that same tradition. The main change here is that the stack height looks like it's going up a tiny bit. I wasn't able to get exact specs on this one. It's essentially going to be the same midsole, maybe a little bit more padding. However, the upper is where we see big changes here. Now with the ride, which we'll talk about in a second, moving to a different foam, this is going to be Saucony's only power run option in the lineup. So power run is that standard EVA foam. So for those who like that firmer ride of the last generation ride, the Kinvara is now going to be that daily training option. So because of that, it looks like they built up the upper a little bit more to make this more of a viable daily trainer, because the last version was more of that lightweight tempo shoe. However, the outsole here still has very minimal rubber coverage, same thing as the Kinvara 14. So this is not going to be a workhorse daily trainer in the same way that the last generation of the ride would be. So in terms of who this shoe is best for, this is going to be good if you like a more traditional lower to the ground ride, while the Kinvara 14 and now the 15 don't have those super low stack heights that we used to see in the shoe a few years ago. They are still a more traditional option than a lot of what's out there on the market. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this above shoes like the New Balance Rebel V3 or the upcoming Brooks Hyperion 2, but if you do like that firmer ride, it is a solid option. And Saucony does have some decent durability, so you can get some good miles out of this, especially if you are a lighter wearing runner on your outsoles. Alright guys, next up here we have the Kinvara Pro. Now from what I saw at TRE, this is going to be continuing into 2024 without a major update, at least in the first half of the year. They were still showing the Kinvara Pro 1 down there, and I didn't hear of any other updates coming to the shoe. So the Kinvara Pro will be going on unchanged. It has that bottom layer of firmer Power Run EVA, a top layer of Power Run PB, and there's a 3/4 length carbon fiber plate in the midsole there to add some rigidity and pop. So this is a good recovery running shoe, a good long run shoe. It could be a good marathon shoe if you're a newer runner, if you don't want a very harsh plated ride. This is gonna be a little bit easier to run in than another plated shoe like the Endorphin Elite, the Endorphin Pro, or even the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3. So a good option for those days where you want to take the burden off your legs, where you have very long miles, or if you want something with just a little bit more zing for those daily training miles. Alright guys, now let's get into the Saucony ride. As I mentioned, Kinvara is going to be the last EVA based shoe. So the ride is going to have that Power Run Plus, same thing that was in the last version of the Saucony Triumph, which is going to give the ride a softer, bouncier, more cushion feel, similar to what we see from a shoe like the Nova Blast 4. This is still going to be that workhorse daily trainer, but it puts it in line with more of where the market is going. So versus doubling down on that firmer foam that the Ride 16 has, we see Saucony embracing the trend of softer foams. Alright guys, next up here we have the Saucony Guide 17. Now the Ride and Guide in previous iterations were the same shoe, except the Guide had a little bit more stability around the outsides of it to help with overpronation. Now we've seen Saucony split these shoes in two different directions. Like I mentioned, the Ride is no longer using the firmer EVA foam, and the Kinvara is the only neutral shoe in that lineup to still use that EVA. However, the Guide 17 is using that Power Run EVA. So this is going to have a little bit of a firmer feel underfoot. It's still going to be that mild stability to stable option, but it's going in a little bit of a different direction with more of a firm and rockered approach. So this is one of the two shoes that is going to take the place of the Endorphin Shift in that Saucony lineup. So what I loved about the Endorphin Shift is that yes, it has a high stack of foam, but it wasn't super mushy underfoot like a lot of the max cushion trainers out there. I also really liked the weight of this and the way that the rocker helped you roll along. Now I'm not a runner who needs a lot of stability, so this plastic heel clip out in the back and the wider base of the shoe for those elements of natural to slightly enhanced stability made this a really awesome option for a neutral runner like me to have something just a little bit more supportive on my easy running days. Now from the updates to the Guide, this looks very similar to what we saw in the Endorphin Shift 3 with those mild elements of stability and that nice rocker underfoot, except the upper is maybe going to be a little bit more comfortable than what we saw in the Endorphin Shift 3. The Guide is now going to be a competitor. It definitely looks to the Hoka model. If you think about what a model like the Bondi does in the market, it's that max cushioned EVA based firmer ride and firmer walking shoe that can serve a variety of runners. So if you liked previous versions of the Guide, you may or may not get along with this one based on the updates, but it is still going to have that firmer ride underfoot that the previous generations had. Alright guys, next up here is the Hurricane 24. Now I want to talk about this one right after the Guide because it is the other shoe in the Saucony lineup that is max cushioned, has some elements of mild stability, and that will be replacing the Saucony Endorphin Shift 3. Now, I have a hunch that this was the Saucony Endorphin Shift 4, but they decided to go with the Hurricane moniker because that's a better known nameplate in the running shoe world. I really wish that they called this the Saucony Endorphin Shift 4 because I absolutely love that Shift 3, but I understand they got to go with the name that has more recognition, and there would be too much overlap if they had this shoe and the Guide and another max cushion shoe. So this is a really interesting shoe for me. It has a huge stack of Power Run PB, so that beaded PIBA compound, same thing that's in the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3 and Pro 3. And then on the bottom layer, there is a firmer base of EVA. So unlike the Kinvara Pro, which also has that same dual foam setup with the plate in here, there is no plate in the Hurricane 24, and the compound of Power Run PB that they're using in here and also in the Triumph is a slightly tweaked formulation that's more suited to daily training than fast racing or workout efforts. So the Hurricane 24 looks to be a very competitive max cushion shoe. I would put it up there against the Nimbus, against the 1080, against the More V4, against the Nike Invincible, in that same camp of shoes. Now that the Triumph is firmly positioned as that premium daily trainer, which we'll get to in a second, this allows the Hurricane to be opened up as Saucony's flagship max cushion cruiser. So if you like that super protective ride, if you like to have that nice rockered feeling underfoot, if you like to have at least one shoe in your rotation that eases the burden on those legs for those true recovery days, I think the Hurricane 24 is going to be one of the best shoes on the market. I wasn't able to get this one on foot, but if it runs like I think it will, which is combining that soft protection with that firmer energy return, I think this is going to be a great shoe. The Hurricane's going to be priced at $160, and it's not going to be available for a while. Unfortunately, this won't hit the market until July of 2024. I'm standing here with the Tempus 2. I know this is another one that we've been waiting for. It looks like they're keeping the same vibe of that first Tempus, which is that dual density midsole with Power Run and Power Run PB. So what we see up here in the forefoot is this core of Power Run PB to get that nice responsive bouncy feeling, and then we do have this EVA Power Run around here to stabilize the shoe. Overall, they haven't made too many changes compared to what we're seeing in the Triumph 22 versus 21. That is a complete overhaul. That is a revolution of the design. We're not really seeing that in here. This is more of an evolution of the design. It's almost like a Tempus 1.5, just bringing it in line with the current generation of shoes. And that Tempus 1 version was out for 18 months, 2 years, so it is good to see them do a slight update. Nothing too drastic here. Alright guys, next up we have the Saucony Triumph. Now I was a huge fan of the Triumph 20 and 21. These things ran beautifully. They had this Power Run Plus midsole underfoot that was soft, that was bouncy, that had a nice ride for just cruising on long miles. I used this shoe for 16-mile long runs last winter, up to 20-mile long runs, and it's just a really awesome shoe for those days where you just want to set the pace, forget about it, and go. Now in the Triumph 22, we are seeing a complete redesign. They're moving away from that Power Run Plus beaded TPU and introducing PIBA into that midsole. So this is going to be a different PIBA formulation than what we see in the Speed 3 and the Pro 3. It's tweaked a little bit for daily training, so it's not going to be as bouncy, and it's likely going to be a bit firmer. To the push test, it did feel a little bit more rigid than if I were to push in the foam on the Speed 3. It's pretty common for brands to tweak their foam, like New Balance does this with the fuel cell foam, even in the current generation of fuel cell with the SC Pacer versus what we see in the Rebel and the Trainer. So Saucony is taking a similar approach with the Triumph. Now this is going to be a max cushion daily trainer similar to what we see out of that New Balance 1080. It's going to have a nice soft, protective, bouncy ride. I'm really curious to see how the non-plated PIBA in this, even though it is a tweaked formulation, rides compared to the plated PIBA and the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3. One of the reasons we see brands introducing plates into these training shoes is to provide more rigidity in that midsole. So this should be a pretty fun shoe to run in. And if it is a little bit too soft for you, that's why Saucony has introduced the Hurricane 24 into the lineup, because that's going to pair the Power Run PB with that firmer EVA. So the Triumph is going to hold the same price, that $160 price point, and it's going to be available in May of next year, May 2024. Alright guys, now let's dive into the Endorphin lineup. So the Endorphin Speed is seeing some changes in the fourth version of the shoe, but it looks like these are mostly aesthetic changes. So they added what looked like a suggestion of dual foam construction, but it's 2 layers of that Power Run PB stacked on top of each other, and there's that plastic plate in the midsole. They also added that window into the plate on the bottom of the shoe, which is a trend that I'm seeing across a lot of these brands. It seems like brands really want you to know that there's a plate in there, so they're now giving us a window into that. Shout out to Adidas for really making that a thing with their energy rod window. So this is going to carry on the same spirit of the Endorphin Speed 3. So it's going to have a nice responsive ride. It's going to be great for long runs, and it's going to be a great workout shoe for the days where you want something a little bit more cushioned and comfortable. Now, I did not use the Endorphin Speed 3 for my workouts during marathon training, and I won't be using it for my workouts in my upcoming marathon training build. I'll be using something like the Boston 12 for those longer endurance efforts, also the Brooks Hyperion Max 2 once I'm able to get that one in, or the Adidas Takumi or New Balance Rebel V3 for shorter, faster things. Where I love to use the Speed 3 is for faster long runs, and also for those steady running days where you want a little bit more pop underfoot than what a non-plated daily trainer can offer. So the Speed 4 is executing on that same formula. They got that winged nylon plate there, same thing that we see in the Speed 3. And overall, they didn't mess with this too much because it's already working really well. They just gave it a design overhaul to bring it into the next generation of shoes. Now we are also seeing an update to the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4 for 2024. And again, like we're seeing in the Speed 3, this is mostly an aesthetic update. Now, I wasn't able to confirm whether or not there would be Power Run HG in here, but from what I did get in the footage of the Endorphin Pro 4 here, it looks very similar to the Endorphin Pro 3 in terms of the construction. Can't confirm whether or not there's HG in there, but it is still using Power Run PB. It still had that nice soft feel on the push test. It is a whole revamped outsole construction, same thing that we're seeing in the Speed 3. I like what they're doing with that lattice work vibe, and the geometry looks pretty similar to the Endorphin Pro 3 as well. Now the Pro 3 was one of my favorite race day shoes of the past few years. I used this for my 2022 Charlotte Marathon. This one has about 250 miles on it. I also used it yesterday for my 23-mile long run. It was absolutely beautiful. And what I love this shoe for is those miles in either marathon range or a bit slower. Those days where you want to get out there, run a little bit fast, but you're not going to be running aggressively, and you don't want something that's super harsh. So this has a little bit of a wider base than you're going to see in shoes like the Nike Vaporfly Next% 3. They're continuing with that wider base in the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4, which again is going to make this a nice option for those longer runs where you do want a super shoe. You do want something that's going to give you a little bit more help, a little bit more energy return, but you don't want something that's going to force you to run super fast to get the most benefit out of it. So a great shoe for more relaxed long runs where you do want a little bit of energy return. Also an excellent shoe for that 3:30 range marathon. All right, guys, last we have the Endorphin Elite. Now, they were displaying the same Endorphin Elite at TRE that we see now. There were a few new colorways of the Endorphin Elite, but it was the same shoe carrying on into 2024. So it's possible that they are working on an Elite 2 update for the back half of the year, but that was not on display at TRE. So the Endorphin Elite is going to be a good option if you are a fast marathoner, sub-3 marathon runner, and you want something aggressive for those workout days, for those race days. It also can be used as a workout shoe if you're not a sub-3 marathon runner, but because of the aggressive geometry and how cramped that toe box can feel, it really can be unlocked most at faster speeds. So similar to a shoe like the Adidas Takumi Sen, this is one that you need to be putting down a lot of power in and running efficiently in to get the most benefit. So at that $275 price point, it's not going to be worth it for most people over the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3 or Pro 4. Those are going to be a little bit more versatile, less aggressive feeling, can use them for your long runs where you're not running super fast, whereas the Elite really is best reserved for race day or those fast workout days. All right, guys, next up we have the Saucony Sinister. Now, I did not see any new versions of the Sinister at TRE. I didn't even see the current version of the Sinister, so I'm not sure if this is going to be continuing on into 2024 or getting a new model, what the deal is here. With the Kinvara getting a little bit more stack and that padded upper, the way I look at it, the Sinister is inheriting some of what the Kinvara used to be, so I would be surprised to see it drop from their lineup. Saucony doesn't have another low, non-plated, lightweight shoe. This is their entry into that fast 5K, 10K racing segment as well, which is a heating up part of the market with the SC Pacer V2. Nike Streakfly may be getting a revamp in 2024. Adidas Takumi Sen getting a revamp in 2024. So I'd be surprised if the Sinister gets dropped. This is a nice lightweight racing and workout shoe option, but I did not see any updates to it at TRE. All right, guys, so there you have it. Those were all the updates coming to the Saucony Road lineup for 2024. Let me know what changes you are most excited about. Also, let me know what else you want to see next from TRE. I got a bunch more stuff to get out there for you. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Don't forget to follow our Instagram account, and I'll be back tomorrow with another video.